The Carle rifle, known in Russian as Bigtovka Carle or Galye, it was a classic traditional weapon used during the Russian armies shipped from muzzle loaders to modern breech loaders, though it served for only 19 years. It witnessed a period of incredibly rapid military tech changes. So, what is the story behind this rifle? It was a needle gun, much like the famous Shellsport or Dries, yet it's never become as well known. Today, let's start with its inventor and follow the timeline to uncover the story. Honestly, historical documents on Carle are quite limited and often unclear, so I've had to try to piece the story together from various sources. So, who was Carle? His full name was Johannes Friedrich Christian Carle, and he was a rather unusual figure. He wasn't a professional gunsmith or an engineer. Instead, he was a Hamburg-based ship owner and insurance broker. While his main business was maritime trade, he had a keen interest in military tech. In the 1860s, Europe has buzzing with needle gun innovations, especially after Prussia's Dries rifle proved its worth in the Austro-Prussian War. This inspired Carle. In 1865, he visited Seoul, Germany, a famous gunsmith hub, and came across a patent by local gunsmith Carl August Luca. Carle bought part of the design and, with his assistant Alexander Jones, improved it by shortening and thickening the needle and adding the laser seal to prevent the gas leakage. As an amateur inventor, Carle eventually sold his design but never actually visited Russia. How did this design end up in Russia? It all began in 1866. After the Crimean War, Russia was under immense pressure to modernize its military. They had a large stockpile of M1856 rifle muskets, but these muzzle loaders were becoming obsolete. A Russian officer, Captain Nikolai Ivanovich Chagin, discovered Carle's design while scouting in Europe and felt it showed real potential. Initially, Carle and his assistant Jones were tasked with converting M1856 musket into a breech loader. They managed to do it, but the result wasn't quite there yet. The performance wasn't as satisfactory as the Russians had hoped, since neither Carle nor Jones could travel to Russia to refine the design in person. The task fell to Captain Chagin and his team of local gunsmiths. They took the lead in finalizing the rifle, making several key adjustments. After these modifications, the rifle underwent rigorous testing, successfully firing 1,800 rounds without a hitch. On March 28, 1867, the Tsar officially approved it as the 6-line needle-fire breech-loading rifle, model 1867. The inherent adoption highlights just how much needed a quick, cost-effective upgrade. Mass production began in 1868 at factories like Tula and Essex, mostly by converting old stockpiled guns. Around 215,000 units were produced, each costing only about 10 rubles, and is used to border troops, reserves, and the forces involved in the conquest of Central Asia. During the Central Asia campaigns between 1868 and 1881, its firepower was a major advantage. It also saw some action on the Caucasian front during the Russo-Turkish War. However, by 1869, its decline began. Russia started adopting the superior Krinka system, followed by the Burden rifles, which used modern metallic cartridges. The Carle was quickly pushed to second-line units, and by 1886, it was fully retired, with most being converted or scrapped. It was noting some of background behind this weapon's production. In fact, when the rifle was manufactured, none of the designers' names were officially recorded. This might be why Mr. Carle remains a hidden hero in history today. the production process itself was far from smooth. When the rifle first entered mass production, a series of setbacks emerged, including issues with the chamber, frequent misfires, and persistent fouling from unburnt paper cartridges. Consequently, Russian arms manufacturers spent several months refining the chamber design and testing variant cartridge types. The Carle rifle was finally perfected by the autumn of 1867. Like any weapon, the Carle had its pros and cons. Its main advantage was cost effectiveness. It allowed a faster conversion from muzzle loaders to branch loaders. The rate of fire jumped from 2 to 3 rounds per minute to 8 to 12. Compared to dress, it had a more durable needle and was simpler to operate. This made it very effective in the battles of Central Asia. However, its flaws were quite serious. The paper cartridges were sensitive to moisture and often left residue in the barrel. As a needle gun, it also dealt with needle breakage and gas leakage, which reduced its muzzle energy by about 20 to 30%. Additionally, the paper cartridge often caused issues that hindered the rifle's performance. Sometimes the rifle cartridge wouldn't burn up completely. This unburnt remains would clog the chamber and the barrel, which directly affected the rifle's ballistics. With a fouled barrel, the next shot would typically have a lower muzzle velocity and a shorter effective range. But the late 19th century was moving fast. As the military embraced metallic cartridges, paper cartridge rifles quickly became obsolete and were retired. Looking back, the Carle rifle was a crucial transitional piece for the Russian Empire. Its most significant impact was during the Russian conquest of Central Asia. In 1868, it made its combat debut at the Battle of Zaryablak and the Siege of Samarkand. There, Russian forces, though outnumbered, used their superior firepower to crush the Bulgarian army with minimal casualties. It continued to support expansion in Central Asian territories throughout the 1870s by the Russo-Turkish War. However, it played only a minor role as the army shifted to Quinker and burden rifles. Its golden decade is centered on colonial expansion. After the conquest of Berlin, as global power shift and larger conflicts loomed, the Carle rifle quietly left the battlefield. Some found a second life in big game hunting, but its time as the front-time weapon had ended. So, that is the brief history of the Carle needle gun. Stay safe, take care, and see you next time.